Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to another special edition week of Industry Chats. I am incredibly excited. This week, I am actually featuring three different startups that I have had the pleasure of pitching alongside and meeting at pitch competitions. So I am super excited. I know, we have so many awesome, diverse guests on this show with very different backgrounds and doing different things in hospitality. This week is very close to my heart because we're kind of all walking this journey together. And so I couldn't think of a better person to kick off our week than my friend Susan Springsteen, who's the founder and CEO of H2O Connected. Susan, welcome.
Thank you, Jasmine. Yes, we certainly have had our adventures together. We've been growing our startups, haven't we?
We have. So, just for the audience, Susan and I met through Entrepreneur 20X 2024. So, both of our companies, along with a few others, were selected to pitch on stage at High Tech. And that was quite the experience, one of
It
my
was.
favorites. And I remember, that alone was really cool. But the blessing I tell people that really came from that was meeting you, Susan, because
Aw.
who knew that we would become such good friends, through that process?
Oh, thank you. Well, anybody who meets you wants to be your best friend. So,
Oh, I don't know about that. My kids would not agree, but thank you. No, it really is so cool. I know Susan and I, we both connect on various levels and we pray together and we talk business. And I call her when I'm like, what do I do? I text you a lot. I'm not actually great at the phone, but Susan, thank you for being here. And we're going to talk about the company today. We're going to talk about what you guys are doing. But before we dive into that, I would love just a quick introduction from you of a little bit of who you are. And of course, give us your pitch. Tell us about the company.
sure, I'll talk about my company all day long. So, I came at the entrepreneurship journey from the investment business, spent 25 years in the investment business, and actually just wanted to have greater impact. So, long story short, teamed up with a brilliant engineer as my business partner, and if you want a big opportunity, you need to find a big problem, right, and
Right.
solve it. So one of the big problems is that there are 300 million tank toilets in the United States and Canada, and all of them will leak, run, or overflow at some point,
Wow.
causing damage, wasting water, running up water and sewer bills. It's really a problem, especially for multi-tenant and hospitality property owners and managers. So we developed a technology that installs in seconds and can detect nearly every type of water loss problem that can occur in a tank toilet. And it's wireless. It sends a text message to maintenance. It sends work orders once a week. There's a dashboard that quantifies and diagnoses every problem with every toilet on a property and pays for itself. So, we are in scale up mode now. I would no longer say we're a startup. We have resellers and we have clients and we are growing. And so we're very, very, very excited. But our goal is to help people save water and save money.
You guys are amazing. I remember you because you won the People's Choice Award at Entrepreneur 20X. And I mean, no one would even question it once you presented, but you stood on stage and I can't remember the very first thing you opened up with, but it was something really grabbing, talking about toilets, right? And everyone's like, what is, and so, I mean, I was sitting in the audience, obviously, because I pitched Affixify, so we were going in alphabetical, and I was thinking, this is so smart. This is so brilliant. And of course, you won. So I'm not surprised. You also won the hospitality show that same year. Last year, you won the hospitality show pitch competition, didn't you?
Yes, we did. We
And
did. We won both of the technology awards at the two largest hotel conferences in the United
yes, you
States. So
did.
we were just delighted.
You,
We were
well,
very,
and
very delighted.
tell me, you also, and again, we're going to get into the meat here, but you also went to India. I mean, you had won a different competition, right, in a different space in order to go to this huge stage earlier this year. Is that right?
It was actually it was in December 2024. So we won a big pitch competition for the water industry, and then there was a Thai Global Summit TIE is a global entrepreneurship, mentoring, showcase, really association. There's 64
Mhm.
countries that have various chapters there. And I'm outside of Philadelphia, and Philadelphia has a chapter. So there's a women's pitch competition that's global in India every year. And each chapter gets to send one person. And so I pitched for that, and I won the Philadelphia region, and I got to go to Bangalore, India, and pitch on a world stage, competing
Amazing.
against 44 women from 14 nations.
Oh my
So it was really cool.
I
And I
mean,
had never been there, so it really, when you go into those situations, it grows you.
yeah.
You know, just it really does. Even the being on the plane to Dubai. I mean, even though I was just going through Dubai, I've never been there before either, and it was amazing, and I can't wait to go back.
Oh, I mean, I had the honor of being part of a WhatsApp group where you sent some updates, and I just like it was so amazing. And that's what I want. I'm like, I want our audience to understand you're not just like an entrepreneur that went and got an LLC and had an idea. I mean, you're like the real deal. I talk about you all the time. And this morning, and I mean this genuinely, I was driving in my car heading home from school drop off, and I was thinking through my day and of course praying through my day, and I was like, I know your story. I know a lot of your story. I don't know all of it, but a lot. I know so much about you, and I still felt very genuinely excited to have you on today. I was like, I can't believe I get to do this with Susan today. So you really are, you're the real deal. You've honestly,
Well,
what I
thank you.
love about what you guys are doing and then about you as a CEO is you've actually really seen a lot. And so you're just wise, and what you guys are doing is so exciting, and then people love it and you're winning. So like you can't go wrong. You guys definitely have a blessing on you. But I want to know, so how did you come up with it? Like how did you sit there one day and say like there's a lot of toilets in the United States? Like how did this whole thing happen? Because I mean, what people may not know is you have like a full R&D, part of your business. You guys are very ingrained in your local community. But before you got here, how did we start?
It was interesting. It was sort of a providence of God thing, actually, when I look back on it. I was in the investment business. I was getting a lot of questions about business strategy. And I felt like if I was going to give somebody some business advice for their small or medium-sized business outside of just running their money,
Yeah.
I should walk the walk. So
Hmm.
I felt like I needed to have money at risk in a small business that I could grow. And in my mind, that was going to be something on the side that I would do in partnership. And about the same time, through church, I met my business partner who he was heading up the product development side of a manufacturing company. He would develop the products and they would manufacture them.
Okay.
And they were going through a restructuring. And so the timing was just right. He is the one that actually identified the water waste through toilets and overflows and things like that as a problem, and did the research and started to work on it. And he had started working on it when I met him. And then we decided to buy the contents of his office and started a product development company called End Solutions that develops made in America. We make everything in the United States, electronic products that save lives, save money, and preserve natural resources. And we take things from concept to commercialization, and then we make them right there in the United States. And then we started to develop the leak detection and eventually spun that off into its own business, and that's H2O Connected. So I've had a great opportunity to see a lot of and
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, growing a business. There's a lot of things in life that you read how to do best practices, but until you really do it,
Oh
there's
yeah.
so much you learn
Oh yeah.
in walking the walk.
Oh yeah.
Because when you decide to start a business, Murphy's Law will put you on speed dial. Things will go wrong. You can't even imagine. And you're like, what are the odds? How could this happen? And so it's amazing. So you see a lot that you would never pick up on if you were
Yeah.
reading, a case study and getting
Right.
your MBA. So
Yeah.
there's a lot about real world experience.
You said that made me think of, and sorry, I'm actually getting over a cold, but when I was fresh out of college, I was actually an intern. And when the CEO, that was a former startup, they were much more mature at that time, but small business and in hospitality. And the CEO just, I mean, I could say all day, he took such a chance on me. I mean, I'm literally, I started with him 2 days after I graduated from Baylor University. 3 months later, he's, offered me a full-time job, and he said, I want you to help us launch and develop a new product. And at the time, right, like that was definitely God's grace, because it gave me that idea. But he said to me, you're about to get a master's degree in new software development and going to market. And I thought, like, at first I was like, what does he mean by that? And now I know, because I actually don't have my MBA, but what you learn from real world
Oh, yeah.
experience could never, I mean, and that's why I mentioned I call you or reach out to you pretty often. I'm so grateful for you, because I'm like, I know Susan will know, or Susan's probably kind of been through, been through this before. And so I absolutely love that you wanted to walk in the shoes of the clients you were going to work with. And look how that's
And
evolved and grown.
one thing's led to another. And to me, I look at this not as a career, but as a calling. And I
Yeah.
think as an entrepreneur, that gives you the ability to make it stick when things are really hard.
Yeah.
If you think it's just a job, or I think Stephen Covey is right. You begin with the end in mind. So we knew when we spun off H2O Connected to grow it, that eventually we would want somewhere down the road to sell
Right.
it. So you're buying it and you structure it, and decisions are made are driving towards that goal. But still, it's a call. It's not only about the exit, it's about the journey, and it's a calling. And so when things go wrong, and in business, things will go wrong for the,
Yeah.
we live in a fallen world, things are going to go wrong. And when a lot of people will give up throw in the towel, I just don't. It's
No,
just, all right, next step, next day, we'll try this again. And I think it comes from that, it kind of the way you look at it
yeah.
and then you weave it into one of the best things about having your own business is you can set culture, you can decide what
Yeah.
you want the culture of your business to be, how much you want to be involved in your community. And as a business owner, if I was, we have our own manufacturing. If I was a manager, I'd have to hire the most productive manufacturing personnel I
Right.
could, right? But as a business owner, I can hire somebody who's trying to turn their life around and
Yeah.
teach them a skill that's had barriers to employment, and use that as a way to impact
Right.
the high unemployment in our town. And so there's all different ways you can use the business and still grow it to the end
Yep.
that your investors in the end get an 8 to 10x times their investment.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
really a great sort of universal, everybody wins.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah, that's the plan. Well, and what I love too is that you taught me that, actually. You and I had a really good conversation not long ago about reframing the whole mindset of an entrepreneur, as from this is like a job to this is a calling. And so when you say that, I'm thinking it's really interesting to frame it that way, because I think so many people start on this journey with like, well, I'm going to create a technology, and then I'm going to make a lot of money, and then I'm going to sell it because I'm solving a problem. But really what you're saying, it's like the meat of the journey is actually where the growth happens. And I think when you told me that, what changed my perspective was, if we see what we're doing as a calling, and actually it's funny, we're going a little off script here, but I love it. When you see what you're doing as a calling versus just a job, it becomes a lot more challenging to throw in the towel, because a calling is very different than a job. A
It
job
is.
you can replace, and they'll replace you any day, but a calling is like, nope, this is it. And you had also taught me, and I reference this a lot, is to look at trajectory and progress and not absolutes in the beginning
Mhm.
stages. So that's so helpful, right? For anyone watching, is like,
It's
don't
all
just,
about trend.
yeah, don't just look at the bottom line number when you're in, your infancy. Look at your trajectory and percent growth. And so, I mean, obviously you guys are doing incredible, but you've probably had some challenges, along the way. And I'd love to hear those. But yeah, I mean, you have so much to offer. And to dive a little more into the topic, I know I love this. I could do a whole, Susan and I could talk for hours about on these topics. In fact, we were late to the live today because we were talking on a deep topic. But Susan, tell me more. So there's a problem to solve. You're actively doing that. How are you solving it? Tell me, how are you guys seeing this in real time, in real, case studies? Because now you guys have some really big opportunities in front of you. What are you guys seeing as like the real problem being solved? And feel free to share numbers behind it if you want. You don't have to.
Well, as I said in the beginning, if you just look at the North American market, there's about 300 million tank toilets. So that's a good market. Okay, that's a good market. And they have this pervasive water wasting issue. And the reality is, let's say you're a hotel with 250 rooms, you have no idea if your toilets they could be improperly calibrated, they're flushing at too high a flush volume, you could have a leaking flapper, you can have a toilet that runs. We've had instances where if the housekeeping will go in, the last thing they do before they leave the room after they turn it is they flush the toilet, the chain hangs up, they leave the room, and nobody rents the room for 3 or 4 days. And that toilet wastes 7,000 gallons a day until somebody figures it out. So with our system, we can immediately tell them, room 431, the toilet's running, somebody needs, we don't, and then it's up to the maintenance to repair it, but we detect it and we tell them what's wrong. So we're trying to make them very efficient.
Yeah.
It installs literally in like a minute and a half per toilet. So there's not a lot, it's not complicated. Our installers tell us it is the easiest wireless device they've ever installed.
Wow.
And it's very consistent, because then when you design a product, you design it for the market. You want to hit the market metrics. But as I said in a recent post I did on LinkedIn, it's not all about product market fit. It's also about product procurement fit.
Sure.
You have to hit the metrics of the people. If you have a reseller or you're dealing with somebody's purchasing department, working with them, and then also the installers. So, it's, when you're growing a company, it's harder when you're dealing with hard tech than software.
Yeah, we were just going to say
it's a lot more expensive. You got to do Gen 1, Gen 2, you have to test it. But sooner or later, software needs hard tech to matter. So, so that's where our space is. Everything we do is hard tech. But, and then we have dashboards and all the software around it.
Yeah.
But
how does that work when you need to do an upgrade? I mean, do they have to then upgrade the actual device, or is there because there's I don't know, technology in the device, you can upgrade it that way? Like, how does that work?
Well, for software, when we're upgrading software, we can push that out.
Right. Yeah, no problem.
So with the upgrades that we do for the node, that we either have to replace them in the field, or if the other ones are working fine, then we just, when we start getting new sales, it's a new generation. Sort of like your new year model car.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and a lot of our changes come directly from the market. We listen, get feedback, and, make changes. And with hard tech, a lot of times you're not going to know. You do a lot of research, you do a lot of testing, but until you actually get into customers' properties, that's when we really know, all right, this is, this really works. And if we change it, so we did it this way, that might be more effective for them. We've had tremendous compliments on our product market fit. And the engineers take that as the biggest compliment ever.
That's a big, because it can be very, product market fit can be this, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very elusive at times as an entrepreneur, and you feel like you're often having to pivot in order to find that. So for you guys to be hearing that is incredible, especially on a hardware piece.
Yeah, it took a little bit of time, but the key is you want to meet their needs and you want to solve their problem, but you don't want to spend a lot of time and add a lot of costs for problems that are sort of one-off, that don't happen often, or they don't really care about. So that it's trying to find that balance. It's that Pareto principle, 80-20 squared is what we focus on.
Fine, because you guys are kind of a category of your own. Do you have to go in and educate these owners that, hey, you probably have a leak problem, or do they know they do and they're looking for something and they're like, oh my gosh, amazing, we need you? I mean, what's the level of education and teaching them that they even might be losing all of this money through leakage?
I find in the hotel industry that particularly, they have an idea, but they don't really know how much water
Right.
until we get in there. I mean, it's not uncommon for us to go into a 150 room hotel and they're wasting $17,000 to $20,000 a year on
Wow.
water and sewer bills that they don't need to be spending money on. That, because for all different reasons. It's usually not one reason. So that's not that unusual. So they tend to think that they have and then some have had a massive spike in their water bill. And then we go in and we find out they've got 7 toilets that run regularly. And sometimes the guests will jiggle the handle and it goes away. Other times they let it run. And experience is everything. So think about it. If you're in a room and it's got a phantom flush and the toilet partially refills every 15 minutes and it's loud and you're a light sleeper, you're going to think, you're not going to think well of that hotel. It sends a bad message. So we're helping not only save money, but and save water, and they can tout that on their, their sustainability initiatives, but also just in guest experience, because it's all about the guest.
Yeah, all about the guest. Well, you're hitting big ones because guest experience and sustainability. I mean, and then obviously saving money. You really couldn't go wrong with any of those. So I think it's incredible. You guys are obviously seeing success. What do you think is, and I don't know, I mean, maybe you don't share, maybe you do, but what do you guys think is coming for H2O Connected? I mean, your growth, even since I met you, has been amazing. Where do you see this going?
Well, building out our the resellers for North America, entering our international markets. I'd love to do Europe and the Middle East, Oceania, going into the Caribbean, Central America, South America. I mean, it's a global problem. There are billions of toilets. So with issues. So it's a global problem, and our technology is applicable globally. So we haven't tested it outside the United States. So this year we'll be doing some of that testing. The other thing that I really have started working on is you have a lot of high water users like data centers and different manufacturing processes that use a tremendous amount of water. And there's a fear that they're pulling all this water out of the aquifers or the hydrologic units in our country, and it doesn't get replenished. And so what we are doing, because we can quantify water waste and we can quantify then water savings, we can create a water credit that can be then purchased by the data center owner or the manufacturer. And so they can show that, and of course, one toilet isn't going to matter. But for 12,000 toilets, I can save 100 million gallons of water a year, typically. But, and so if I can match that, they can then show, yes, we're using a lot of water here, but we're offsetting it there. And so, it's not, I could say billions, but that's a lot of gallons of water a year, but that's a lot of water. It's a lot of toilets. But not only that, I can say, all right, this data center is located, let's say, in Virginia. So I can then take the hotels and the apartments and the public housing that's located directly in the same water source that they're taking water from, and I can save water right there locally. So it helps balance it. So I think that's some way where we can take not only save water and save money for the user, but then use that water savings calculation to be able to help high water users in other industries. So that's
so much potential. It's incredible. You have one of those products that doesn't just have to be hospitality, and I think that's the beauty of it, is your scalability, right, is so phenomenal. And question as we kind of close out, although now I'm really wanting to do another round of this with just like wisdom from Susan, like Susan's wisdom, and then H2O Connected. But what advice would you give? And you've given some already, a lot, but what would you give to any innovators, either watching live or on YouTube later, that might have stumbled on this and maybe they need some encouragement? What advice would you give?
Well, certainly, I think one of them, make sure you do product procurement fit as well as product market fit. I'm going to talk about something a lot of people don't talk about. Before you start on the venture, make sure your family is on board if you have one.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of times when you enter a startup, the money you have to spend, the late nights, you're going to miss your kids' baseball games. You're going to be on the phone late at night. Your family is also going to take a toll. And I've seen startups blow up relationships and families. And so I think it's great, but it doesn't mean you can't do it if you obviously have a family, because most entrepreneurs do. But just make sure you have real honest conversations, and your spouse, your kids, if they're old enough, are on board, so that you don't lose something that's actually more precious than your company.
Oof, that's good. Yeah.
So I think that's one thing. And make sure your capital efficiency is key. I think it's easy for early entrepreneurs. They get a pot of money and they start spending a lot on all these different, where they think they have to have big marketing budgets, and the marketing people are going to kill me for saying this, but be a capital miser.
Yeah.
Because when you run out of money, you're going to have to raise money again. You're going to have to give up equity, or equity is precious, and you have to try and keep as much as you can in the beginning, because if you're scaling something that's big, you're going to have funding rounds over time, and so you have to be careful about that. So those are a couple of things. There's a lot, but those are a couple of things that I think about.
That's amazing advice. I'm nodding along and I'm like, yes, absolutely. I haven't reached the second part as far as we don't have investors, but the first part, absolutely. And I can speak from my own experience in this. Like, we're 18 months into launch, but we've been developing over 2 years now. But I'll just yesterday, I'll have periodic check-ins with my husband. My kids are really young, but hey, like, still on board, and he's like, oh yeah, but it's very true. I mean, we don't always realize what it's going to take. And in fact, Susan and I are part of a women's prayer group. And I sent this morning that one of the things I consistently try to make a pillar, I'm not perfect, is that I don't want to get to the next stage of life, be it 5 years, 10 years, whatever, when Affixify is a thing of the past someday, and not have my relationships intact. Because
Right.
it doesn't matter how successful a company is or is not, like, those relationships are key. So what you're saying 100% resonates. And even in my baby years as an entrepreneur, I'm trying to remember, like, to make that time for those relationships. So,
and I think, those check-ins with your husband, when he says, hey, I'm on board, go get him, sweetheart, that gives you the freedom and a relaxation and a lack of stress to then go after it. If you've got all this, these questions living rent free in your head, it's, about, oh, is he happy about it? Is this a problem? What did he mean by that? It can really sap your strength, and you need to have, you need to be on your A game.
Yes, 100%. Oh,
So,
I couldn't agree more. Well, Susan, you are such a gift to my life, but to our industry and H2O Connected. And I can't wait to continue to see how you guys grow. Like I said, it's very cool that we met through a pitch competition, but it's so much more, right? And so thank you for being on. And actually, I wanted to share, we didn't get any questions, but we got a really awesome comment here from, if you know, Christopher. Susan,
he's the best.
Susan is not only an amazing innovator and entrepreneur, but is a great mentor to many up-and-coming innovators and dedicated community volunteer. Her friends at Chester County United Way appreciate her so much. I mean,
Wow.
so many people.
That's wonderful.
Thank
He
you.
is a fantastic leader. He leads our county's United Way, and he does an amazing job what he's done there. He's built a phenomenal team.
Well, one of these days we'll dive in on the show to your community. I mean, that's a whole different show, but just how you're involved in the community. So, well, Susan, thank you for joining us on Industry Chats. I just am so honored. I can't wait to get the episode up on our YouTube so others can be encouraged. And thank you all for joining today. And we will have this to rewatch on YouTube within the week. And Susan, thank you. Have a really Merry Christmas.
You. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it was the best. Okay, and everyone will be back tomorrow with Wendy, and she is the founder of Evolution, which they are a technology that pre-vets influencers before your hotel hires them to represent your brand. And then on
Oh,
Thursday, Susan and I, another friend of ours that we met through E20X, we will have Adam Tuttle, the founder and CEO of
oh,
Etsy, who does brand standard management for hospitality. So
that'll
we
be
have a
good.
packed, exciting week. So join us again tomorrow and Thursday at 12 o'clock Central. See you guys soon.